Hey, welcome back to the Leadership Puzzle, where we explore pieces that make great leadership work. Today, I am so excited. We have a guest that brings heart and insight and a deep sense of purpose to everything she does. Ingrid Hu Dahl. She is a TEDx speaker. She's a leadership coach. She has her own consultant firm. She's a former executive at Meta, Capital One, and The Gap, which are just amazing companies. Uh, and she also has something that in common. She bridges the worlds of business and academia. And so with a couple of decades of experience in learning and development, passion for belonging, inclusion, and storytelling, she really goes out of her way to empower founders and senior executives and rising leaders across industries. She's also been a filmmaker, a musician, an advocate to bringing your unique lens to what matters most. So I'm excited to talk about her new book, The Sun Shining on the Morning Snow. Yeah, if you have it, there it is. Great cover. It is a beautiful, honest reflection of identity loss and rediscovery. So we're gonna dive into all kinds of things, including her leadership journey and what it means to live in between the spaces. So Ingrid, welcome to the Leadership Puzzle.
Thank you, Jeff. What an honor to be here with you.
Well, when I found out you were going to be a guest, I was just so excited because you just have an amazing story to tell, and there's probably a lot of places we could start, given your career. So I want to start with your book, but first, why don't you give the audience a brief overview of who you are, your kind of journey that got you to where you are.
Oh my goodness. So I chart a lot of this in my memoir. So thank you so much for having me and shouting it out right away. Sun shining on morning snow. I was born in 1980, so I grew up with an interracial um, marriage family. My parents were students at Rutgers University. Mom was graduate school and my father was undergrad. And I entered the world where there's still tremendous racial tensions around that mixing. And I sort of represent that difference and that otherness. It's brought up, every single day in my youth. My story is one of curiosity, trying to understand and slow down xenophobia and the
Mm.
things that we cannot see, which immediately allow there to be categorization and these responses to otherness that don't feel as natural as I think humans tend to be. It feels a bit forced in that discriminatory lens. So my curiosity in growing up also was like, you know what, I'm going to pause in the world of humans and go into animals. Like that's going to be my journey. So I learned a lot actually from horses and how to communicate in these different ways through rhythm and centering, through nonverbal communication, slight verbal communication, movement, and then return back into honestly just like learning how to be a teenager and seeing women older than me almost act like wild horses. And I just love that. There's something about the spirit having this human experience that feels like liberated and free but connective
Right.
that I love. And I think that's kind of driven my whole experience from grassroots organizing to help be a founding member of a rock and roll camp for girls to teaching as a guest lecturer academic on the East Coast to touring as a rock musician and really connecting with audiences and having interactions that were really like, wow, what's going on here? And being curious to investigate it. And all the way through my very, very amazing squiggly career, what really connects all the dots are other women who sponsored and saw in me the opportunity to translate and bring me into spaces that might have been really hard for me to just navigate on my own. So I really shout out the importance of a network, but also women who are truly your sisterhood crew who want to advocate and do the extra work to open the doors and hold them.
Yeah, that's so important. And so well, that network of people that will lift your arms when you can't do it yourself is critical. Too few people have that.
Mm.
Um, so you then jump in. You know, as we mentioned, we met a gap. I mean, so
Yeah,
we could probably talk a lot about that, but I do want to get into your book because writing a book is it's
thanks.
not for the faint of heart, right? And so sun shining on the morning snow is really deeply personal to you. So I want to start with what inspired you to write it now after a full-blown career that most would be envious of.
Oh, thank you for that. A lot of my network and community, other leaders are like, why didn't you write a leadership book? And I think very much so, this is a leadership book. It's about laying bare my story and who I am super authentically and bringing you into my shoes to show you this is the context in which I have grown to become a leader. This is the context in which I've understood what really inspires and engages people, how to approach people in a way that makes a team thrive, like truly.
Yeah.
And I figured laying bare was part of the gift of this is me fully and honestly. And I, just like you, just like anybody reading the book, have gone through similar kinds of experiences that are painful, but also there's this opportunity to choose the kind of life you want to live and to be bold. And a lot of that comes from forgiveness
Mhm.
and love and reconciliation. And the true impetus of this book, the inspiration, the amplification, was the tragic loss of losing my mom.
Oh,
So I'd say 4 or so months after I lost my mom to cancer, during a very dramatic experience of quarantine hotels and trying to get to her while she's actively dying in Taiwan, I was just, I remember it was just one of these like light switches, like I have to write our story. And in it also highlight my mother, who is a complicated tech pioneer in her own right, but this beautiful person who just also struggled. She was a warrior and a martyr. She was broken and she was powerful. Like there were so many things that she was that I felt like explained to the lineage that each of us come from. And for me, I have
right.
a really strong female Chinese lineage, and I wanted to share that, but also how, despite all of those things, you get to choose where that goes. You're
Yeah.
not just somebody who receives it. You get to actually use that to amplify and change the direction and the course for good or for bad. And I want to go with the good.
Good. And so it sounds like for you, there was probably a cathartic element of just getting your thoughts, your emotions down on paper. If nothing else, that probably would have been okay.
Yeah, I processed a tremendous amount of grief. And in the process, I had a writing coach. Some of the parts of the book that are painful, not just related to my mother, but also like bullying. I had to sit and slow it down. And most people want to like skip over or go fast, like, oh, fast forward that sucked. And for me, I had this opportunity to be brave and to slow it down so you could really kind of see what I was seeing, what I was observing, what I was feeling, what I wondered, how that shaped, sort of the way that my journey continued and the lens that I had to grapple with, and then let go of, and make peace with and heal from. I think when I think about leaders today, so many of us still carry a lot of that. Not everybody's sitting down and writing a book to process grief and loss. And oh God, I have so much healing to do in my life. Hopefully, people have invested in a therapist and a coach. But people who are not necessarily aware of that or actively working on it, it just sort of almost is like a cycle of bumping around and having these moments where they're not feeling good or their team's not feeling good. And there's actually an active way to evolve that.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that this book could show an example of how one could do that.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a maybe a generational demarcation from your generation and younger being willing to step into that grief, into that pain, and
Mm.
sit in it and experience it and really process it through. Where I think I'm a generation above you, and we were like, bro, okay, you shed a tear, uh, pick yourself up and just keep going.
That's
And
right.
and you know, I think that's an important lesson that certainly the X, Y, and certain boomers could learn. That spending a little bit of time and really digging into that pain so that you can truly heal. Right?
And sharing it. I would have honestly would have loved my pioneer, career-driven leader mom to sit down with me and tell me she was going through and when she
Mm,
was crying and sad or having to re-record her outgoing messages because she was trying to strip the otherness from her accent. I wanted her to sit down and explain to me what was happening for her instead of leaving it to my own interpretation, whereas young kids, you just absorb everything, like,
yeah.
and you're not sure how to like sense make. But after working with kids 8 to 18 in like the rock camp environment, kids are ready to be brought in and shared, like, hey, are you curious about what's happening? They're not always ready for it, but if they are in this moment, like, yeah, why are you crying, mom? And it's like, okay, well, I've been having these experiences at work and they've been really hurtful. And I think we miss out the opportunities to have these dialogues and instead allow shame or anger to come in and close a bunch of doors.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
bring people in, and, you know, we have the opportunity to do these things that aren't necessarily handled alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's such a mindset shift.
It is.
Then,
Yeah.
gosh, even my generation is don't let the kids see you cry, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everything's fine. My parents, I, you know, before I knew it, my dad had stage 4 cancer. He's like, "Oh, I have stage 4 cancer." I was like, okay, so why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
just a completely different mindset than what you're seeing now with, well, certainly with all the mental health and just awareness that what, counseling's good. It's
Yeah.
okay. There's no
Yeah.
stigma to it.
Yeah. There's things wrong with you. You're just kind of, that's normal to
Yeah.
have potential stuff that you need help with. Oh my God. My generation too, it's hard to ask for help. And I think
Mm.
culturally too, oh my God,
Well,
like
yeah,
you should just be suffering through it, man, And you're
that's
like, wait a
right.
minute, should I be suffering through it? Like,
Really?
that feels weird.
Well, very few organizations, whether it's a church or someplace else, even your community, don't understand how to effectively deal with someone's suffering, especially if it's more than just a short period of time, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
I broke my leg. Okay, I'll be with you during your suffering of on crutches, but if it's longer than a month, then people get weary and they just don't know how to do that. Don't have to deal with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think HR, oh, in some ways, we're not therapists necessarily. We're not coaches. Not everybody's been trained to be a coach, right? So you're navigating all these potential unknowns while having great expertise in a lot of areas, but it's coming in hot and heavy. And I think the culture needs to shift to know that it is very normal for people to be having any of these things that could be happening for each individual and
Yeah.
be in a culture where you're in an ecosystem that's constantly changing and requiring a lot out of people and having the thinner membrane to handle these nuances of needs.
Yeah.
it's a thinner membrane. And like that's pretty hard to navigate. We're in such an odd time around that membrane. So as a generational openness is yes, that's happening. I feel like the corporate elasticity around that is getting tighter.
It's definitely harder. And I mean, you brought up HR. I mean, they have to be part psychologist, part counselor, part coach, part
It's a lot.
priest.
Oh my God.
I mean, they've got to be all of
Evangelist.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got to be
Advisor.
the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And most HR leaders just get tired from
Mhm.
that, and that's. I mean, I can't tell you how many HR leaders have said, "I'm done." 2020, the pandemic was hard. We got through it, and it's just gotten harder.
Hmm.
And they're like, "All right, peace out. I'm gonna go do my own thing."
Yeah. Want to do something more fun than laying people off by the thousands. Yeah, that too.
Exactly.
There's so much
Exactly.
of that happening. And a lot of it that's not necessarily being covered. I hear about things all the time. I'm like, damn, you had to lay off that many people? Like, wow. From my friends who lead the business or in product and design, you're just like, man, that's so terrible. Um, but yet in the news or even Business Insider, it's sort of like, oh no, there's still jobs. I'm like, yeah, but there's 5x the amount of people in the saturating the market
Yeah.
trying to get these jobs. Like that's really important distinction. It's
Yeah.
a really scary time for people right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to get back to your book, but
Yes, of course.
certainly in the context of I want to be remote or hybrid, where the jobs aren't necessarily where the companies that have just laid off 1,000 people, right?
Hmm.
And so if companies are wanting to get back into the office, and it
Oh,
makes it
they are.
that
Oh, yeah.
much more difficult to find something, which then causes a lot more anxiety, which I see every
Hmm.
day. I see every day, and my heart breaks.
Yeah. I'm with you.
So um, I think this transitions pretty well to this concept of living in the in between. I mean, it
Hmm.
really resonates with me. I've had my fair share of kind of that in between time in different contexts. So I think you write about that vulnerability and strength living in this in between. How do you think this in betweenness can is that a word? In betweenness
Yeah,
resonates with today's workplace and leadership. So let's see if we can't bring the book into some of the leadership stuff we've been talking about.
for sure. I would say in betweenness, especially from this perspective that I'm sharing in the book of, I'm biracial, I'm bilingual, for a little short while I was bisexual. Uh, Being kind of, it's not either or, you're both and that in between gives a real nice cushion. It's kind of like being in the barracks or something, and there's like this trench and there's
Yeah.
like these two sides, right? I'm trying to think of an analogy, but that's one that's coming up for me right now.
Sure.
So you're right, so you're kind of in this in-between space where you can kind of pop up and be like, okay, wow, this person's really angry and this person's really angry and they're pointing guns at each other, yikes. And it doesn't mean you're not necessarily participating, but you have this moment to kind of pause, slow down, see both sides in this different, unique way. If you choose that, there's plenty of people who are kind of thrown into the like trenches, but then pop into one side only and want to be seen as we're on this side. That's just like, everybody's unique and different. For me, I think if you get too comfortable with being the outsider, then you never necessarily participate. You're always kind of observing, or you're going farther and farther away from the actual active civilization that's happening or the conflict that's happening, and you're just kind of hanging out all the way over here, hidden. But it's often hidden.
Yeah.
And so when people finally like see that there's this in-between space and they kind of get closer, there's a lot of like, wait, can we get in the trenches? What is this? Like, is this okay? Are we safe? Am I safe? I think what's beautiful about having that in between space is making it less invisible and bringing it up and bringing people into there are different ways to see this situation.
Yeah.
let's engage in that different kaleidoscope of lenses. It's not just a bifurcation of this lens, or I'm right and you're wrong. Like everything's such a binary. So I like that that gives us a space to think of like things as a series of different lenses, and bringing up a chair to the campfire to really sit and take the time to
Yeah.
self-reflect and reflect and talk to other people. That's how it
Which,
feels.
yeah, no, that's a beautiful picture because I think as a country for sure, we've lost that ability to say, hey, you and I might not see eye to eye, but we
Hmm.
can still sit in front of that campfire, roast some marshmallows, maybe have a nice glass of wine or beer and talk about why
That's
we
right.
see things different and still be friends.
That's right. Heineken did a really great job years ago with this ad where they brought people who were really one archetype. It was like somebody who was really actively anti-trans and a trans person. And they end up having to build something together. So in the act of doing these things together, they like start having great conversations and getting to know each other. And then there's this moment where they pause and show clips of interviewing how they react and respond to trans or anti-trans people. And it's pretty intense,
Yeah.
right? You're like, oh God. And they're both sitting there like, oh, this is awkward. And at the end, they're offered that like, hey, there's a bar over here where there's two Heinekens. If you want to continue to hang out and talk, like enjoy the Heineken and have a conversation. And they literally then both decide to continue the conversation. And it's one of those things in such a short kind of ad experiment. It's when we come together, not based on our differences or the issues, but in collectively connecting, building something, we realize that we're very similar just as human beings. And
Yeah.
those layers that get in front of us where we get really righteous are not helpful in the
Yeah.
human natural inclination to connect.
Yeah.
So I think as leaders, we have to do the same thing. It's like, oh my God, there's all these layers. In corporations, it could be like we're only seeing from the product point of view because nobody sees our lens as product or sales or operations
Yeah.
design, like you name it. Um, it's us versus them. And that's what gets really dangerous too, because it actually takes all of these important groups to work collectively
Yeah.
and to understand the different skill sets and expertise and points of view to come up with a really beautiful product or an innovative approach to something that then gets out into the world and hopefully services the community
Yeah.
or the user, the client, or what have you, the
Right.
customer. But that's not even how corporations are necessarily designed. So it's fascinating that we just keep replicating these divisions as opposed to thinking thoughtfully around what's the veneer that we need to constantly strip back to get to the root connection of just being humans
Yeah.
working on something similar together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me when I worked at Intel,
Mm.
just down the road from you, and they had uh, they had this concept that you were gonna just debate. You're gonna go after your your side of an argument, and you have to back it up. Why? But when the decision was made, you were gonna stop. You
Hmm.
were gonna accept whoever the decision maker was, and you were gonna be friends when that disagree and commit. When we leave this room, you're committing to this direction. You had your say, and that always resonated with me. It's like we want all sides because better decisions get made that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm. I love that. The healthy debate and commit is so important because as soon as people break that commitment, there's a lot of toxicity and poisoning the
Oh
well that
yeah.
happens, right? And people don't realize how fast that can catch on fire and then literally burn the entire house down.
Oh yeah. Once politics, kind of corporate politics get woven
Ooh.
into, that yeast into the culture of a company, you're done for.
Yeah.
Um, my last company had the most apolitical, company that I'd ever worked at. I loved working there.
Mm,
We started buying companies and bought a larger company, and
mm.
they were uber political. And you just naturally you're gonna you bring some of that leadership in, trying to do a nice merger of
Yeah,
sorts,
acquisition. Oh,
and then all of a sudden, best intention, that yeast of politics got in, and it's a completely different organization today. So,
mm.
but we'll get into culture here in a minute. I want to kind of get back to a couple more questions around your book, "The Sun Shining on the Morning Snow," on morning snow. We've talked a little bit about grief and healing as some central themes of the book and the journey that you went through. What lessons did you uncover that you think could help a leader navigate their own moments of uncertainty or even transition? Because you start a new job. There's an ending, right? And some
Mm.
people, if you've worked someplace for 15 years, there could be a grief associated
Oh, for
with that.
sure.
So,
Oh, for
what
sure.
are some of those moments that you would um, counsel or coach leaders who are
Yeah,
listening?
I love that question. In the book, there's a couple of moments where I realize even at a young age, the answer is no. I'm not going to do this anymore. This is not giving me joy. And these are precious moments. When I is more of an adult, I think it's really challenging because you sort of somehow wrap your identity around the company and the title. You can, not everybody does this, but it's very common. And what I think is fascinating is losing my mom kind of forced this reckoning with what mattered. And I'm not saying I don't have an ego anymore, but it's I certainly had to get to a place where I was like kind of at the bottom of this well and also at a really low point. I was definitely experiencing so much grief and there was mental health things going on for sure. And I was very unhappy in big tech. I was really like grappling with a lot, like so much was happening. And I kind of hit this like rock bottom in my career experience, even though I was employed. I was like, wow, this is like, I'm really unhappy. And I had this unlock where I was giving too much away. I was
Mm.
giving too much of my soul. I was giving too much of like everything was weighing in on, how good or not good my day went at my job. And that was not only defining my experience back home and in the morning and the next day, it was just a constant interruption invading my every lived experience. And somehow I allowed it to have this power where it could do that instead of saying no and creating like really strong boundaries, even at the risk of being seen as an underperformer, which is always sort of like the thing that I think a lot of companies dangle. Well, if you don't do all this stuff, blah, blah. Fine. List me as an underperformer if that means having strong boundaries. And I think people are so terrified
Oh yeah.
of being marked as an underperformer or being let go. And so much of this is out of our control. And so much of it is about a company's numbers and not you personally. Like you could be the best leader and people absolutely are just following you and championing you and you're doing incredible like targets and metrics and impact and you could still lose your job. And I don't say that to scare people, but I think when I realized, things were happening with my mom and watching her let go of some of that identity crises, career identity crises, especially as she kind of like moved into this whole different vignette in her life. And I think it's because she knew in the back of her mind that she had limited time.
Yeah.
I think when death and loss kind of come into not just your peripheral vision, but it's right in front of you and you're in the room with death. You know that death is coming and it's like waiting to transition. your parent, she's lost time. She can no longer do what she had wanted to do, but
Yeah.
would a job be the thing that she was wanting to like hold on to or to have as part of her eulogy? Absolutely not. And it helped me in, my like mid 40s realize, oh, I want to emphasize who I am in life and how I made people feel. And that could be in my leadership roles and careers, sure. But in the eulogy that I hope somebody reads of mine, it's about the connection I made and the warmth and the love and how I did things to help support others along this path. Like, right? Not, oh,
Yeah.
she worked at these companies. It's not a resume. I'm sure you've heard this before, so it's nothing new, but I really truly believe these big moments in life allow you to get off this hamster wheel and think you're in control, but you're not.
Yeah.
And to say, guess what? I'm not in control. I actually am not sure what I want to do. It's terrifying. I'm scared of financial unrest. I'm scared of like, what will people think and say if in LinkedIn I say I'm open to work? All those things are related to fear.
Yeah.
And we need to kind of grapple with fear as if it's death in the room. We're
Hmm.
sitting with death in the room. That's what I had to do. And sitting with fear in the room and saying, you know what? Even if all those things happen, am I still alive? Could I still be okay? Okay, if all those things happen and I'm still alive, I'm still okay, is there still power
Yeah.
over me? Well, it dissipates. Okay, so if I've gone through all of that potentially and I'm still okay, then what happens outside of that is just this beautiful meadow of possibility, of play, of discovery. And I truly hope that everybody who is listening to this gets to that meadow because we need to return. It's sort of like return to ourself, to nature, to, play, growth mindset, possibility, but like it's sort of a liberation.
Yeah.
And when you go back to what I was saying about horses, horses and the young teenage girls that were like a wild pack of horses, that energy, that sort of soul-driven freedom is, I think, almost what every human would like to experience, but they're making these concessions that they're either being asked for or not. And you have to really say no.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, that's absolutely beautiful, to think of. I know my wife and I, empty nesters now, and I'm trying to, get my company up and running. She works for a nonprofit,
Mm,
and 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 we're sitting there going, we could spend all our time doing that work, whether it's, start, running a company, or, working for a nonprofit, all good things, but are we truly living the way that we had hoped to at this point in our journey, our life journey?
that's right.
So this is just a great reminder that
Mm,
that hopefully you don't have to experience a death of someone close to you, but perhaps there could be some other, less, dramatic impetus to say, you know what? Companies don't care about you. I mean, people in companies, but the company itself, it's
mm-hmm,
it's agnostic. Whether you're there or not, it doesn't care. And I know that's a scary thought to a lot of people.
mm-hmm.
Um, and you're right. You know, you can be a top performer, and then just like that, they go, yeah, but we want someone younger,
Yeah, more junior, less
smarter, less
expensive,
expensive,
whatever.
whatever it is,
Yeah,
right?
you don't know.
And you all of that passion, all of that drive, all of that commitment and loyalty goes out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And so starting to live now, and experiencing life now is so much better. Having that reflection. So I mean, that's what I love, about your story. And so, now, if a leader were to pick up your book tomorrow, I mean, I know it's way more than a memoir. Um, even though it is a memoir, it's so much more and richer. What would you want them to walk away with? Whether it's a feeling or thinking differently about themselves or about a topic. Let's do that, and then we'll get into some of the other topics I want to touch on really quick.
I'd love them to do three things. One is to call a parent or a family member and ask the question or say the thing that they've been scared to do. That's one thing.
Okay.
I definitely learned that in a leadership experience, which I don't write about, but I realized that my anxiety and trying to control a lot of things was experiencing my parents lose a lot in the 2008 economic downturn. And so the way I was showing up to them was very, I don't, maybe judgmental or controlling because I had my own anxiety around finances. And once I realized that through this self-awareness kind of leadership coaching I called them. That was the first thing I did. And I said, I am so sorry that I've been showing up in this way. And
Mm.
it's because I'm so scared of what had happened. I watched that happen to you, and I'm so scared that that's going to happen again to you, to me. And I show up from that place. That place is actually around anxiety, and I've not told you that.
Yeah.
So I want somebody to call up a family member and tell them truly how they feel and what their fear is, and maybe even what their hope is, but just call, just do the thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is, I think, really taking the time to connect back with yourself. So the self-awareness of what is going on with me. If I'm seeing a pattern, if I'm unhappy, if I feel misunderstood, I need to do the work to really chart out what is that and how do I kind of get myself out of this rut and get to a place where I can sit and see with new eyes, not from a space where there's so much rut that I've been digging and digging and digging, and now I can't see anymore. I can't see over the hedge. And so I
Yeah.
operate in this one space. And once you do that, I think ask your partner if you have a partner or a best friend and say, when I started thinking more and looking at this in this way, could you give me like what happened for you?
Mm.
Was it different? How did it feel? Get feedback from people who really care about you because that's going to help get you out of just this tiny comfort zone and really expand.
Yeah.
And the third thing is like ask your team, hey, in all honesty, do you feel safe? Do you feel seen? Do you feel supported? What ways could I better support you? And I really want to listen to this. Like, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm not going to listen to respond. I want to listen to understand. I really want to hear you. I want leaders to say that and mean it to their direct reports and their teams.
Yeah.
And if they don't know how to address it, then hire a leadership coach. Get the support because I bet you have the resources to do that, even if
Yeah.
they come out of your own pocket. So
Right.
do the work.
Do the work. No, that's great. That's great. Now, this certainly was completely unintended, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time. You transitioned out of big corporate America and started your own consulting and coaching business. Tell us a little bit about that. So, if someone is saying, "Oh gosh, I don't know how to do this," Ingrid would be a great person to connect. But let's start. Let's take a couple of minutes. Tell us about your coaching and consulting business.
I started my coaching consulting business in August 2023. So not very long ago. I'm coming up on about 2 years. And I would say if you're in a place where you're open for an adventure and allowing some like play and discovery, there's a lot to learn about starting your own thing. Like there's plenty to do to, get your LLC set up and, your website. And like I had to learn Squarespace and that was really fun and different and new. And so embracing the new and the unknown and where you might need help, ask for help or hire somebody who can support you. There's this like whole new space to be an infant and somebody who's just like completely new, like you're back in kindergarten. And all these other adults with experts are people you can bring into the fold. And I love that part. I actually think it's very humbling and exciting to discover all these experts that you can bring in. I also am amazed that so many people who I have coached or worked with along the years at Capital One and these other companies have been fantastic referrals to future clients and to gigs. Like even my peers in other places or friend group or network are like, oh yeah, I've got somebody who needs coaching or somebody needs leadership consulting, Ingrid. And once the word gets out, once you have a website, once you're telling people that this is who you are and this is what you can provide, it's not to be underestimated. I mean, does it take work? It's hard to get clients. It's hard to get business and sustain that. I've been like going back into corporate world, like in and out, because it's not necessarily sustainable right off the bat.
Right.
And I think just being realistic, like this takes time, it takes money, it takes investment. Um, but if it's something that you love and you really feel like you've got the right supports to spark this service into the world, into the field that you're working in, like by all means, it's fun and connect with other people like me and like you, Jeff, where, most people are not just like sitting in their offices trying to just focus on them. They love connecting with other
Yeah.
entrepreneurs and experts. So keep the doors open. What we all need, again, bring the chair to the campfire. If you just do it by yourself, you're kind of limiting it to
Yeah.
yourself.
Right.
Open it up.
So you do executive coaching, uh, HR consulting?
I'm starting into that a little bit more, but really, I love when people are like, oh my gosh, we have this issue. So, for example, at Gap Inc., a lot of what I was doing was helping our C-suite sort of figure out what are the leadership behaviors
Mm,
company-wide. It's a really
sure.
large company,
Yep.
86,000 people. And that's a really big task. And a lot of the outside consultants can help and weigh in. They're fantastic. But part of my job was to say, okay, if these are the values, the new values of the company, what are the behaviors that
Yeah.
are actually going to unlock those values into practice that can be seen and measurable? And then how do those show up for people who like have teams and for people who are literally leading the business?
Right.
So I set up sort of a vertical of lead yourself, lead your team, lead the business, and then cut through from the values. Each value had two behaviors that went into each of these domains.
Right.
And it's almost like a competency, if you will, but it helps chart out, okay, so then if this is what that behavior looks like from an enterprise-wide view, what does that look like for me and where I am at in the company is where I think HR partners help with business leaders to help bring life into.
Yeah.
So again, it's not just me as this like leadership, development expert or learning development expert. It's a partnership to help continue to evolve and clarify and amplify the adoption of these in a way that makes sense to each person, no matter if you're in a team of 200 or you're at a company of 86,000. So I
Yeah.
love working on things like that at scale, but I also love the deeper, immersive, programmatic experiences that enrichen leaders
Mhm.
to help lead because you need a lot of space to let go of that control, get super good clarity, listen to understand. Like sometimes it's the basics, but it's also curating a space where you get a connection with your peer community because people
Right.
forget their peer community is like so important. It's like that's who you need to be working with the most and like putting fuel into those relationships. I can't double down on that more and bring in experts who are outside to like pull in this sort of 360 view. Do
Yeah.
I still think executive coaching for people who are coachable and ready for a coach? Yes, I think
Yes.
that's really important. But HR consulting, I think it's more just like how do I show up with my expertise to support and enhance what HR experts bring.
Right.
That's what I'd love to be able to support doing because I'm not an HR expert, but I'm somebody who's like, I have a good experience experimenting with humans of all ages, of all different backgrounds, in all different industries. let me use that to help solve some really big problems around culture and how we behave and how we show up and connect with each other.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Um, Gosh, we're literally out of time from the commitment of what I want to bring in. I'd love to bring you back. I mean, we just scratched the
Love to.
surface. So yes, sun shining on morning snow. You can get it at Amazon.
Oh, yeah. Every book distributor. You can also just go to sunshiningonmorningsnow.com or my business website, which is ingridhudahl.com.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So please reach out. We'll put the URLs in the comment section. But Ingrid, thank you so much for bringing your full self to the conversation.
Thank
Uh,
you, Jeff.
so if you have not picked up her book, Sun Shining on the Morning Snow, as I said, it's not just a memoir, it's an invitation to reflect and reset and rediscover some of the things that really, really matter. And don't forget to follow the Leadership Puzzle, share with a colleague, and leave a review. And if you're ready to take your people strategy to the next level, then feel free to find us at evolvehrs.com. And until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep putting the pieces together. We'll see you next time on the Leadership Puzzle.